What is it? Oh, it's just an offer, but I'll take it. Okay, brilliant. We are live. Fantastic.
How long
Um,
have we been live?
hopefully not too long. Good evening, everybody, to a standard classic professional start to TATCHAT number 104 with myself, Zahir, and Nick. We for those of you that may be new to this, I'm probably guessing there's no one new to this at the moment in the chat, but we do a weekly chat every Tuesday on alternating on my channel and Nick's channel, where we just talk about stuff that's on our mind in terms of reselling or topics that have come up on the Facebook TATCHAT group, for which there is a link in the description. And today's topic is going to be what it takes to be self-employed. But before we get into it, Nick, tell us about your day.
Um, yeah, I've been doing DIY, as you know. I'm
Yeah.
kind of taking the week out from regular reselling to get jobs done because I never give myself time to actually do DIY. So I've laid a floor in the hallway today, nearly finished that. So yeah, that's all I've done all day.
Well, in a way, it kind of speaks to the topic slightly, because obviously you can choose to do that, which is one of the benefits, I suppose, of being self-employed, isn't it? I mean, we've talked about this whole self-employment thing before lots, but there's always new people joining, and plus, it's always good to reevaluate, isn't it? Like where you're at, things that you might think were relevant or good before. Might suddenly become less relevant to you or mean something different to you
Yeah, and
after a
also
while.
I think it's good because you're like a year. Well, you and Beck together are like how long into it full time now? It's like a
Oh,
year.
under 2 years. It's
Yeah.
coming up to 2 years together. Yeah.
Both of you doing it full time, you'll have had to
Yeah.
reevaluate and work out what are the pros and cons as you go. You're kind of in the middle of it. So yeah, I think it's always worth going back to a subject and finding out where you're at with it.
Definitely, definitely. We've got a few hellos to say as well in the chat before we kick off into the topic. Give people a little bit of time to pop in. We've got Bumcrack Picker, Karen No Crafts. We've got Jason Entwistle, Treasure Pirate Heather, Southwest Sellers, who's been at the auction today and has spent 563 quid on 28 lots. So it's going to be quite busy, I'm guessing. Ray Cunningham, Panzer, Chelsel's in the chat as well. Hi there. So Will You Take Less has joined us as well. So Stu Mandry, just Indie Chick has popped in as well. So hi everybody that's in the chat. Really appreciate you joining us.
I've just got to get the door. Give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure, no worries, no worries. Yeah, so I mean, Bum Crack Picker says hate it when the show starts with an advert. Oh, that's bad. I mean, but it's giving me more of that YouTube money. So I don't know what to say. Apologies for that, BCP. Don't like to disappoint the regulars, but them's the breaks. But yeah, guys, I mean, we've talked about this topic before, but there's always like fresh people joining, so it's always worth revisiting. So hopefully we're going to have a nice little chat about what it means. I mean, we've all done this. We've probably all been through this in our minds when we're taking the decision whether to leave employment, which is something we've all been kind of brought up with. It's the standard thing, isn't it? Where you go to school, you get a job, you get employed. That tends to be how most people are. That's how most people see things, and that's how most people are molded, I suppose. And so I suppose it's always nice to revisit. What kind of deviated you from that path that 95% or probably higher of people take, which is just to go into a job. What were the questions that came into your head that made you take that decision, and what questions should you be asking of yourself if you're going to make that decision? And that's hopefully what we're going to be delving into. So we've got Nick back. Brilliant. Yeah, first thing before I ramble on too much, what I wanted to kind of talk about, the first point that came into my head when I thought to myself was about this topic, and we were like, okay, we're going to talk about this. Thought the main question you've got to ask yourself, in my opinion, is your why. Like when people ask, what's your really good reason as to why you want to do this, as opposed to have a job. Bearing in mind, I can guess if I was to ask the chat, like, give me your reason why you wanted to go into reselling. I can guess that the being your own boss, getting more time with your family, and like earning as much money as you can will be things that come up. Yet the funny thing is, none of those come easy. And in actual fact, once you've done this for a while, you realize that the income, the time with the family, it's if anything, it becomes more difficult to achieve those things, because of the learning curve, because of the various things that can happen. It's not those things are what will come to your mind quickly, but won't necessarily be achievable straight away. I mean, what would you say to that, Nick?
Yeah, and also the one that I think everybody does say is I want to be my own boss. I don't want to have somebody telling me what to do, and that is a big draw to being in control of your life. But that is a double-edged sword. Totally, you realize soon after it's like everything. I've said this before. Every problem is your problem. You don't have a boss, which means he's not going to pay you. You've got to pay yourself. It also means you've got to direct yourself. You've got to time manage yourself. You've got to do all of those things. And that is not easy. It sounds lovely. Yeah, I can do what I want when I want, but you have to be organized. You have to be self-disciplined. And I'm not, that is still my main struggle with working for myself, is the discipline of it. So yeah, all of the things that you think will be great are also the things that can be an issue with being self-employed.
Definitely. I mean, you're talking about the being your own boss. That is definitely the one of the first things. You know, it won't have a boss on my back, and like you said, that really is the ultimate double-edged sword or poison chalice, whatever you want to call it, because you know it's. I think the first taste most people probably get in their lives of being their own boss to an extent is when they either go to college or university, where suddenly for the first time since growing up you're given that tiny little bit of extra space, in into which you can choose how you do things. So if you're at college, you'll get those free periods where you can choose to do what you want, whether that's go off to the local shop to buy chocolates and look at adult magazines, or whether that's to or whether that's to do your coursework or your assignment work 6 weeks before it's due in, or whether you do it on the morning that it's due in. And
totally right. And I should have seen my issues coming, because once I got to sixth form, it all fell apart for me. I was like a sort of A grade student up to that point, and then it's like freedom. Yeah, I'm just going to go and hang around in town and do nothing and play on my Atari ST at home and bunk off every day. And then when I got to university, and I was just a rebel without a clue. I was just doing nothing because I could. It was like
I think that's such a good point. And I same here. I noticed that as soon as I was given any kind of freedom, I fell off the rails. Now, and you might even be able to spot that these kinds of traits even amongst your own kids and things. I mean, like, we've got two daughters, one of whom I'm not going to name either in terms of who does what, but one of whom will do their homework as soon as it's set, make sure they're organized about it, and then the other will do it literally at the last moment. And that's just the way they are. And if you then decide to go into the self-employment, you've got to fight that for the rest of your life, because that might be who you are, and to change that is not easy as it sounds.
No. I think also another big draw, and it certainly was for me, I think, to do my own thing, is being a creative, free thinking person and wanting to be able to create something. Certainly when we were setting up the shops, that was the passion for me. It was creating something new and building something. So that's a big part of it. And I think you mustn't underestimate being able to have ideas and see them through. And some people are just like that. Some people continually have ideas and want to do their own thing. And that you need that driving force behind you. It can't just be about, I don't want a boss. You need to have some direction and some sort of passion for it as well.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Karen says, she echoes the point of, being self-employed, that you're your own boss, and that's the pro and the con. And the reason for her was the cost of childcare made it not worthwhile going back to work. And that's something that, can be, understood by a lot of people. Childcare can cost an awful lot. And it's one of those things. Southwest Seller says, self-employment fell into my lap, took redundancy 2 years ago, and also took my pension. Treasure Pirate Heather says, love the hunt, like making my own money, love the independence. And Ray says, so I can watch YouTube videos about eBay. That's that's definitely something we all have to deal with. And he says, I have no boss, my wife may say otherwise. Definitely.
I can totally relate to what Indie Chick has put, actually. She says,
Mm.
my job was affecting my health. I was totally burnt out from it. I fell into reselling and had a light bulb moment when a friend sent me some links to reseller vids. I mean, I can totally relate to that. My job was affecting my health. I was unhappy, and it was totally affecting my mental health. And I knew I had to get out. And it was like the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders when I took that plunge. And it wasn't easy, and it's never going to be easy for anybody thinking about taking the leap. It's tough and it's frightening, and it should be, because it's a big, serious financial risk you're taking.
Huge.
But
Yeah.
I never felt better than when I walked out on my last paid employment, which just told me I was doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely something to think about is, how are you feeling right now? I mean, because there's there's nothing wrong. I mean, you've mentioned this yourself before, that in a way reselling is the perfect complement to a job. So, for example, if you're working and you're happy in your job, it's a great way of just speeding things along. You might use the reselling money to pay off your mortgage quicker. You might use your reselling money to have nicer holidays, to maybe change cars more often, or maybe you want to send your kids to private school. Maybe you want just to do more and have more freedom. And if you're happy with your job, reselling is fantastic. And there's quite a few people in the community that have demonstrated the power of being able to resell.
Yeah.
In addition,
I totally agree. And I don't think necessarily for everyone the goal should be, I want to be full-time. I want to be full-time. That shouldn't necessarily. I mean, we've all watched Joe's videos, who has a job that he's passionate about and he loves, and he's passionate and loves reselling on the side, and it's win-win. I mean, his setup is just perfection, really, when you think about it. He's got the stability of an income. He doesn't even have to resell, yet he's caning it. You know what I mean? And then you've got Ben, who's got a situation now where he's taken part-time, hasn't he? And so he's still got that security of a set amount of income, and then the reselling on the side. And I think that's the perfect setup for a lot of people. And you shouldn't necessarily think the goal has to be to go full-time. It will be for some people, and some people that will be ideal. But it's a huge
and that decision is going to come into your previous observation about how you felt when you left your job. There are going to be some of you out there that literally cannot, that could not stand the idea of doing, even forget a few days, even a shift somewhere would be too much. I mean, some of you guys may know, but when we moved up here, especially because of the financial costs and everything, the changes that we had, I did actually attempt to work. But even though the financial situation would have, and logic and common sense would have dictated it was probably wise to have gotten that sustainable, steady income, it would have just made things so much more stress-free. My stress of actually having to work and unhappiness at being somewhere where they thought playing a giant board game about how great the company was in their training course and things like that, it was just so overwhelmingly powerful that I would rather have had the stress of the financial uncertainty than the stress of being, because it's not just unhappy, is it? It's literally, when you can't stand to work for someone, it's beyond that. I mean, it's
soul destroying.
Yeah, it's a need. Yeah.
And I think you fall into the category of someone who needs to do their own thing, and you figured that out. And
even if it's harder, it's better for me overall and better for everyone around me.
Yeah, well, that's it. Because I mean, what we need to say is, I mean, reselling full-time it's no easy option. There's nothing easy about it. But the reason we persevere and we make it work is because there's some element of us that needs to do our own thing, and this is what we've chosen to do. But yeah, it's fascinating, actually.
So I suppose gauging, in a way, how much of an issue it is to work for someone, Like, that's going to be an important factor then. So if you guys are thinking about this, you really have to hate going into work for someone. I mean, hate it to the point where you can't think properly when you even consider the thought, like that kind of level of, because you're right, the alternative is not easy. Reselling full time,
No.
it is so, it's such a
And
change.
more to the
Yeah,
point, having a job with that set income, you have so much going for you. And
yeah,
this is what I think we need to get onto, is what you lose when you give up a full-time job. And I
yeah,
wouldn't want to put anyone off. I'm a total advocate for getting out there and trying it, and trying self-employment, but be totally aware that you will not have all of the benefits. Basically, well, the big one is a set wage every month that you can rely on, gone.
yeah.
Right, gone goes that. Once a month I get X amount in my bank. That just doesn't happen anymore. You don't know what you're getting from day to day, week to week, month to month. It's just, yeah.
That's huge. That is huge. I mean, it's worth dwelling on that just for a second, Nick, because that is, we're so used to it. I mean, and especially when you do anything, for example, if you decided you wanted to apply for a credit card, or you wanted a loan or something, one of the first questions you get asked is, what's your income?
Yeah,
And when you don't know your income, because it varies, it's different. That tells you that you're not the norm anymore.
yeah. I mean, things
Yeah,
like trying to get on the property ladder,
yeah,
self-employed, is going
yeah,
to be harder. Lots and lots of things, like just budgeting, general things.
yeah.
It,
Just
it's tough, and it took us a long time to get used to that and to build up a cushion of money behind us so we could comfortably ride those waves. Is not easy. But then going on from that, you don't have the security that is in place for employed people, with
yeah.
sick pay, with holiday pay, time off. All of those things are gone once you take that leap. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, those things I think a lot of people just take for granted. Not to mention, you don't have to worry about working out your tax or national insurance. I mean, that's quite an apt thing to talk about, bearing in mind we're coming to the end of I think it's the end of this month, where you have to hand in your online
Yep.
self-assessment.
Yep.
So that's another task that most people never have to ever think about. The closest the average person that's employed has to think about tax is remembering their national insurance number when they first start a job, so that their employer can do all the work and figure out
Yeah.
all the
I mean, tax to most people is just an annoying number on a form that you look at and go,
yeah,
"Oh, look how much the government's taken." That's the last
yeah,
you think of it.
yeah. Not
But
not
we have
now,
to
you have
work
to
it out
work
and
it
then
out.
pay it, Dion.
Yeah, yeah, extra. There definitely seems to be, I think, an issue with YouTube today. Not sure if all the notifications have gone out, because we've got 56 of us in here, which is still brilliant, but it's a bit lower than we normally get on a Tuesday. And so I'm guessing,
Caroline did a
yeah,
stream, and Andrea said she didn't get a notification until an hour
yeah.
later.
So that might be an issue, but saying that, the chat is actually still really nice and buzzing. Lonnie's in here now as well. Um, Yeah, and there's some really good comments coming in. Indy says, "I feel like I'm living rather than existing." I mean, that alone is, that's a strong reason, isn't it? That is a super strong reason.
Yeah.
How it
I
makes you
think
feel day to day.
I think for me, being in control, and it does make you feel alive. The kind of, because everything is your problem, and day to day you don't know what you're going to be doing, you don't know what you're dealing with, you do feel more alive. Sometimes a job can become just monotonous. You go in, you do the same crap, you don't really put your heart and soul into it because you don't give a damn. And that's what I was like in some of the jobs I had. And it's not living, is it? It's just
No.
going through the motions to get a paycheck. And at least what we do, it's fraught with its own stresses,
Yeah, but they're
but
your
it does
stresses.
make you feel alive.
Yeah. I mean, will you take less? Just says, just to echo that point, I'm sick of overexcited bosses thinking I'm excited over their unexciting ideas. I think that's one of the toughest things for. I would have. I found that particularly difficult. When it came to any job, all the companies I tended to work for some reason, had this whole ethos of promoting passion for the brand amongst their staff, and I found that very difficult. I tried, and it just didn't work. And I think it's so difficult to be genuinely passionate for your, or like for the company you work for, unless you really genuinely are passionate for the company you work for, to learn that passion, or to grow that passion, I suppose. I just not sure if it's possible. But they do try, don't they? They
Yeah.
do like
And
to.
I remember it was a similar thing when I worked for Virgin. I did enjoy that job, but I could see people within the company that were company career driven people, and they were in their element. And I kind of envied that in a way, because I'd look at them and they were loving it. They were loving being, Miss Virgin manager. We used to have a woman manager, and she was passionate about what she did, and it was great to see. But I would go around thinking, I could do this better. I want to do this for myself. Why am I making money for these people? And that was my
Completely.
mindset. I was constantly thinking about what I could be doing
Yeah.
apart from this.
And that's when there's something up. I mean, Lonnie actually says, I'm actually jealous of the people that have jobs and sell part-time. They can be more selective about what they sell. And I think that is a good point to highlight, because that is what changes. That's what highlights the difference when you're full-time and part-time. In a way, when you're reselling part-time, and this is not to take away from anyone, but it often strikes me in a way, like if you trade on a demo account on one of those trading websites. We all know there's loads of stock trading websites out there, which allow you to gamble, or gamble/trade your money on the stock market for real. But most of these companies also, to entice you in, offer like a demo account. And there are stories of people that have traded the stock market on their demo accounts with not real money. So money they're not losing any money. And they've successfully traded themselves into millions and millions of pounds worth of profit. But as soon as they've actually put real money on the line, that magic goes away. And what I mean by that, in terms of comparing it to people that have full-time jobs and are reselling, if you're not reliant on your reselling income to pay like your mortgage or your rent or your council tax, your utilities, etc., then if it is literally money on top of your normal income, I feel that you can definitely make really good choices. I think because you don't have that pressure. I feel that I've made like decisions, sometimes under a lot of stress when it comes to buying and selling stock, that I may not have made if I was in a better place, like say financially, so I would just say that for me is the difference between doing this and why even if you're doing this part-time right now and you're thinking, oh, screw it, I want to jack my job in and just do this full-time, and that's why you really need to think about it, because the jump is huge.
I think you're right, and the word you used that I was going to use was pressure. And once you suddenly take that leap, it can kind of go from being a fun thing you do on the side with a bonus of I've made some money to I've got to make my mortgage payment. This is serious now. And suddenly, it's not that all the fun goes away, and you kind of have to learn how to enjoy that side of it, but there is an element of pressure, and it's all down to you. It's like the gloves are off now. This is serious. And that's the difference. And it can really affect your mind, and because you have to take it seriously on a certain level, because you've got serious goals you have to meet monthly, as in you've got bills to pay.
Well, and the thing is, even if you have a good month, what happens then is the daunting realization, like the real pressure is, now I've got to do it again next month.
You got to do it again, and then you
okay, wow, so we had a great month, we paid everything we needed to pay, we've got money, blah blah blah, but now, like you said, from scratch, you've got to do it all again. And there's no set there's no you're not on rails. You're not just going to do your 39 contracted hours like you did the previous month and get exactly to the same penny paycheck. You just don't know. You could smash what you did the last month, but equally,
I mean, you could work just as hard the next month and earn half as much. There's nothing to say that can't happen. And it can become like a merry-go-round. It can become like a job, because you are still on that treadmill. It's just that you are in control of it.
a much more stressful treadmill, definitely. And I mean,
It
like,
can be. It can
we
be.
had a really rough time around February, March last year in terms of our sales. Our sales just really did take a nosedive. And me and Beck have caught ourselves talking about this February. It's almost become like a bogey month for us now. And we're like, oh my God, what if we have another terrible February? And we're like, okay, we've really got to make January happen, and really go for it. And,
Well, our January's going to be awful, and we kind of have already accepted that because we're kind of doing other things and we're not putting the effort in. It's like, yeah, we've kind of not written January off, but we're not going to even worry about the figures for January now. It's fine.
Yeah, no, touch wood. We've actually had really good run since Christmas, really.
Yeah, but you guys
Um,
put the work in straight
yeah,
after
we've
back on
just
it.
been going for it.
We did nothing until after New Year.
And
So
I think at the moment we're still living in fear of what happened last February with the sales. So we're going to be going straight through this.
fear is a powerful
Yeah.
thing. Use that fear seriously.
We are, or we're using it. Honestly, we're just thinking it's almost become like like the financial markets look back on like Black Wednesday or Tuesday or whatever. I don't know, and we look back on February now as not again.
But that is how to use those things, though, isn't it? Seriously, if you
Yeah.
can get motivation out of it, that's what you need to do.
Definitely. Jason says, I'm lucky I have a full-time job between March and October. And Kirsten says, I don't have the pressure. I'm so grateful of that. Yeah, I mean, it does make all the difference, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Heather says, Treasure Pirate there says, best thing about reselling is you have to continually adapt and never stop learning. Used to get bored in all my employment after a short while. I did as well. I was never happy in a job because it would just feel mundane. And I also used to hate being told what to do by people that I felt were inept at what they were doing. There was nothing worse. It would just drive me to distraction. Fresh-faced kids out of university or whatever coming along and thinking they know how to run a retail outlet. And it's like, oh my God, it drove me. Oh, I hated it. But I could also admire their passion. Like I was saying before, you'd see these career-driven people and they were just loving it. They were totally in their element and loving it. Half the time they didn't know what the hell they were talking about. At least they were happy. I wasn't. I wanted to be out of there and doing something else.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that comment that Heather's made is actually one of the points I'd noted to talk about is what it takes to be self-employed. It definitely requires you to be to be adaptable, because you're just gonna have to. Don't go into this thinking what you're doing now is what you're going to be doing even a month down the line, or 6 months or a year, or something may work for you consistently for 5 years, and then suddenly you're going to have to change. I mean, Nick, you're actually a fantastic example of this to talk about, because obviously over the years you've seen so many different things and you've changed your business in so many different ways. I mean, you've gone from selling exclusively music to selling exclusively Lego, and then you've become like a generalist. You've branched out into FBA, and you're always looking for new ways to do it. And I think that's a great example.
Yeah, I think it really helps to be able to do that. And yeah, well, reselling itself is constantly evolving anyway, and I think we're going to see a lot of change in the next few years. I think we've managed to arrange that we've got Steve and Steph on again on Thursday to talk about local selling again. I think that's going to be something that we're all going to look at a bit more closely as that evolves.
Yeah,
it totally helps to be adaptable.
Would you say it just helps, or do you think it's almost? I would actually go as far as to say it's more than helps. I think you need to be adaptable. I think if you're someone that struggles to change,
there's exceptions to every rule, and there will be people out there that set up a business 30 years ago and they're still doing exactly the same thing now. Those people and those careers and jobs, self-employed people exist, and they'll be perfectly happy and it works. But I think the nature of what we do is very opportunist, and it's always evolving. The fact that it's online and the platforms are constantly evolving, nothing we do stays the same for that long. So reselling, I think particularly, you have to move with the times,
or you'll get left behind,
because the products we sell evolved. evolve, and the ways we sell them and the platforms we use, everything is changing on a year by year basis. So if you stay doing the same thing, you're just going to get left behind sooner or later.
Definitely. Thank you, Daniel, for the £2 super chat and the question: have you ever considered applying at KFC? There's not one close by, but I don't think it would be as good as it smells. Put it that way.
I was going to say, talking about being self-employed, I don't know what you think about this, but I think you have to have an element in you that is a risk taker. Because if you're not comfortable, and I know people that are really risk averse people, and I can relate to that, but I have an element of me that wants to risk everything. And I kind of get off on that. It's scary and it should be, but that isn't part of me that has made me fit into this role perfectly well. I think Andrea is less so, but she kind of supports what I do, and it works as a team. But I don't know what your thoughts are, but I think if you're going to go self-employed, you have to have that element within you that you're comfortable with. Because if taking risks makes you feel stressed and uncomfortable, you might want to reconsider.
Definitely. I think that's an excellent point. I definitely feel risks are risk. The bigger the risks, the greater the reward. Risks do separate. I think they will determine like the level of success you have. I think because anything you do is going to have a level of risk to it, and you can actually apply that to every stage of reselling, whether that's on eBay or Amazon or whatever. There's a level of risk going to be associated to how you source, just because how do you sort of, so you someone that's happy just spending 50p's in a pound at a car boot, or are you someone that's a little bit braver and doesn't mind spending 20-30 pounds on an item at a charity shop that says no returns? Or are you someone that's a bit more risky and willing to bid on a lot at auction without having fully seen it, or just on a hunch? Or are you even more risk averse and willing to go out and buy like a huge amount of stuff and sink a ton of money into it in the hope that you're going to get a return? And again, even bigger than that, go wholesale and there's so much expandability. And I think when it comes to like Beck and I as well, it's definitely me that's the riskier one. Beck has learned to accept my riskiness. I always like to shake things up, and I think she likes to, but I think she secretly likes to, but she has to.
Yeah, I think you can't avoid it. If you're going to get into self-employment, if you're going to set up a business, no matter what you look at, there's going to be an element of risk, as in you're going to have to put your money where your mouth is. And in what we do, you can see that on a microscopic level, because each time you invest, even if it is a pound or 50p, you're still risking that money. And there's all levels of it. Like you said, to the other extreme where you're investing 4 or 5 grand in a haul, you've got to work out, can you cope with that level of risk? And then, of course, the huge risk, the subject we're talking about is, should you go self-employed? What are the benefits or the drawbacks? And just that step is a huge risk personally, because you've got to quit a job. You've got to lose all of those things. You're risking your income taking this step.
Yeah, and especially when you add children to the mix. And I think with the way things are, I mean, a lot of it depends on your situation. Like some people would say, what I did was risky because like I left, I've got kids as well, and I've got bills to pay, etc. And I left a job to start selling stuff online. But in my head, it wasn't so risky, because the way I looked at it is, I've only ever been in low paid work. I've never managed to get a promotion due to my attitude at work. For me, I think Rebecca took a bigger risk because she had a better job to leave. Like, I think if you've got a job that's not paying particularly well, if you've got a job that's paying less than the national, was it the average wage, which is what, like 28 grand a year, if you're earning a lot less than that a year, I actually think it's less risky, because I feel with a bit of graft, it's completely feasible to make that kind of money selling online. However, if you've got a decent job and you're earning decent money, then I think the risk is even bigger, because I'm like, that's and you do see people leaving and talking about it on YouTube. I think Bonafide Hustlers mentioned he left a 6-figure job to work for himself. I mean, that I think takes, in a weird way, more, even though he's got like financial security because of that, I guess. I think that's a risky thing to do.
Yeah, well, you've got so much more to
Yeah.
lose. I mean, it
Yeah.
stands to reason, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Whereas I
much
was like,
bigger
well, I'm
decision to
poor
make.
anyway, so
You'll be
I'm not
taken
gonna,
away from
so,
a bigger job. That's a bigger decision to mull
yeah.
over than it is
Yeah, like I
minimum
think
wage job, of course.
completely. And that's how I reasoned it to myself, to be honest. Um, Lonnie says, "Wowza here, quite an observation. It sounds like we need to just gamify reselling, look at it as points instead of dollars, right?" I think in a way that could probably help, because then you could be braver in your decisions, and
Yeah.
when you
I
take
see it as a game quite often.
yeah,
The whole thing, the hunt and the chase and the finding it and then turning it into points, if you like, rather
yeah,
than pounds. It is a game, and
I
and
think
you should enjoy that part of it.
definitely. Definitely. I think that's actually a really good idea, because it does take that, it takes that emotion out of it. Because when you're actually dealing with pound notes or dollars or whatever, there is definitely an emotion that comes in, and that's what affects people.
Yeah.
Um
And also, like we were saying before, there is that pressure. If you've got to meet bills every month and you know you've got these targets and stuff, if you can kind of not be blind to that, obviously, but enjoy the process, enjoy the hunt, and enjoy the whole, how much can I get out of this item, etc. Turn it into a little bit of a game in your head. It takes that little bit of pressure off.
yeah. Doing it yourself lifestyle. Ryan says selling part-time with a full-time job is hard work, but it would never be the stress of just reselling. Using your last £500 to make more money to pay the bills next month is a vicious cycle. Definitely. I mean, I can see what you're saying there. It can be like that, but that's the risk you take, I suppose, when you go full time and you have no other income. Right, just go down the chat a bit.
I read Kirsten's and she says, we bought a newsagent, going back to talking about how things evolve over time. We bought a newsagent and it evolved over the years. Now it's an art shop, stroke vintage curiosity shop. That's great.
That is adaptability. That is adaptability.
You just follow what works. I think that's the key, and it's the ability to be able to see that. The ability to A, see when something isn't working, and then B, work out what is and focusing on that. Yeah,
Definitely.
it sounds simple, but it's not always easy to drop something and move on.
Al Zatic says worrying can hurt your sales if you let it affect your buying decisions. Yeah, I mean, I think that is the key, though, isn't it? That is the key. If that is your income, it will affect your buying decisions. And I mean, I think it now affects us less, but when we first moved up here, it definitely was affecting my buying decisions. I can say that. I mean, looking back at some of the buying decisions I made, they weren't nearly as good as I thought they were at the time. And some of the stuff I've still got, like from when I first moved up here, that when I went to auctions and started buying stuff, I think it was almost panic buying, to hit the ground running, and it doesn't pay off.
Well, I'll take that a step further and say that worrying, and I equate that to stress, affects your whole business. It affects your ability to work. It affects your ability to function, get stuff done, the whole thing. I mean, when we were really struggling and up against the wall trying to make our clothing shop work, going back about a year and a half,
Yeah,
I was struggling in my reselling because my mind was consumed with, how the hell are we paying this rent bill?
yeah,
And when you get into that cycle where it's like, I was having to basically prop up that with my reselling, and it just made it so stressful for a period of, I don't know, 6 months to 8 months. Yeah. And
it's
it
not
was
what you want
tough,
to be. Yeah.
really tough.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, Treasure Pirate said not being over attached to results does free up energy, which equals money to flow. Worry can act as a block to this flow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. And I was totally in that position. I felt like I was running to stand still and I was working harder, but being less productive. And it was just,
No, that we felt like that quite often. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, we share our sales figures. I mean, recently things have been really great, but we have been on there where we've had our £400 weeks and things, and you can imagine the stress that that puts on you. It's insane. But like I said at the beginning, when you balance it all out, if it still seems worth it to you after going through that stress, then okay, you've got to make it. I almost feel I have no choice but to make it work. I literally, because
exactly. I mean, working for the man for me was more stressful than the stress of making this work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I stick at it, and I know I always have done. I mean, we're lucky. I still don't like that word, but we're lucky that financially we're fine. So I don't really have that stress right now, but I know exactly how it feels because we've been there many times.
Yeah. Well, you shouldn't like the word because it's not just luck, is it? It was graft. It was graft that's gotten you that.
I'm still, what I'm trying to say is I would still rather take the stress of struggling to make what I want to do work than working for somebody day in, day out and just feeling run into the ground and stressed by that.
Yeah. Right. Treasure Pirate says, I'm much braver now and do spend out when I know / feel the profits are there. I think that's definitely something that comes with time, and again, that's something that that grows. Your tolerance, I suppose. It's just your risk tolerance, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's something that you can learn, but I think it helps if you've got a risk element in your head that is there already when you start.
It will just it will let you grow that much faster at first, won't it? Because it will mean that some people will have to, like you said, learn that risk tolerance, and in the meantime they might be missing out on opportunities that could help their business grow.
The thing is, risk isn't a bad word, and risk isn't a bad thing, because the risks that I take, and likewise with you, it's calculated. It's not like we're going, I'm going to roll these dice and see what happens.
No, it's not that bad.
You put the work in, you put the research in, you're still risking, as in you're handing over thousands of pounds and you can't see the future. You don't know what's going to happen, but you should be safe in the knowledge to a certain extent. You've researched it. You are pretty sure what you're doing, but you cannot take away the fact that you are still putting that money on the line. That's where the risk is, but it's not a bad word. It's not a bad thing. In fact, it's a necessity in what we do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that does lead on to having like a calm and cool head, because things often don't go to plan. I mean, like you said, it's not when we make purchases, or when you make a decision for the business, you have made it based on some kind of calculations, definitely, but things don't often just go exactly to plan, and it's how you react to those those little deviances from what you expected to happen that can sometimes be the difference. So that could be something like buying something and then realizing that it's not quite as good as it was. But now, say you went and spent like a lot of money on a bunch of stock, and you thought it was going to be this good, but it turns out it's only like this good. Now, some people, that would be a major panic, but in time, and I think the more experienced resellers demonstrate it shouldn't even phase you. I mean, it reminds me of a video that Craigslist Hunter put out a while back about him blowing out a bunch of items that he had bought, that at the time he bought them, he must have thought they were good items, right? But they just weren't selling for him. So they would often sit there for 6 months plus. And he happily just made a video about how he auctioned them off at 99p. And some of them were just selling at 99p, but he couldn't care less. He was just like, yeah, I just blew it out 99p. He charged more for the shipping to cover his initial cost. And that's what he does to get away with it. And some of the items were actually bidding up fine, but it wasn't phasing him that a lot of these items, he was literally just getting his money back out after giving it.
I'll be honest, it took me a long time to get to that point. And I remember watching that video as well. And I remember thinking, yeah, I remember having to learn this through retail, because I used to cling on to how much I had invested in stuff. And
that's where I am at the moment.
Once that money is invested, it's gone. You can pretty much forget how much you spent on something, because all that matters now is how much can you sell it for? And if all you can sell something for, like this isn't something I'm reselling, this was a Christmas present, but this empty Kit Kat tin, let's say I spent a tenner on it a year ago. If all it's worth now is 99p, forget about the tenner. You need to get that 99p and you need to get it quick. And cashing in stuff, even if it's just cashing in a job, let's say you do buy a job lot and it turns out it really isn't what you thought it was, and you're going to be lucky to get your money back. You need to work your socks off to get your money back. And then once that's done, you can reinvest in something that might make you some money. But yeah,
so I'm kind of glad we're talking about this, because I do feel that this is definitely an area that I'm still trying to get my head around. Like, you know, I really struggle with that, the concept of it, because I know that I need to do it, but I feel so invested. Like, you guys know I've bought this RC Hall, right? And part of that, I've got 86 of these things, right? And I should just blow them out, because I figured out now that we've turned over like 7.5K on our 3.5K investment. So even with fees and everything taken out, we are definitely in profit now by a long way for the margins. But I still am struggling to just blow these out. I've got 86.
What do they owe you per unit?
Well, when I bought them, as part of the initial 3.3K we spent, they owe me £2.50 a pop.
Right. So even if you sold them in bulk at £2.50 each.
But I can't do that. I'm struggling.
No, listen, right? You're already in profit on the whole deal, yeah?
Yeah.
So if you sold that for £1, that's £1 profit.
I know, but my brain just...
This is what supermarkets do. You know when supermarkets clear the shelves, they are like on a Lego range, for example. Yeah. They are like over their entire stock. They're like 100,000 in profit.
Yeah.
They'll set fire to them just to get rid of them. They don't care. But what I'm saying about that is, if you just clear out those models for whatever you can get, it's profit on top of profit.
I know. I mean, the thing is, I've sold a measly 10 so far. Okay, so I did have nearly 100 odd, but I've been selling them for like, a higher price, like 17, 15, 12, that kind of thing, and I'm clinging on to them like that. And I know it's so stupid, but
you could do that, but you'll still have them in 2 years' time.
Yeah, I will. And I just,
I mean, you could probably make some. Are you thinking about doing a big bundle and like probably sell it to a store somewhere? Or
I could auction them. I don't know. I don't know yet, Nick. But it's really apt that we've talked about it, because that is something I've been driving Beck's potty over the last few days, because I've been like, what about this? Should I job lot this? Like, you might remember that I was talking about job lotting some model kits.
Yeah.
I got as far as taking down all my listings, making a new listing, setting it up for auction. About 5 minutes it being up for auction, I took it down. And I put all the other ones back. So I just wasted all that time. I just can't do it.
The element of it you need to focus on is those numbers you said at the beginning. You're already in profit on anything. On everything rather. So if you did auction that heap off, let's say you get £100 for a massive heap of models, that's £100 in your pocket.
No. Do you know what? My above my eye, it's like literally twitching with just trying to get my head around it.
Well, what about just like, let's say you're selling those planes at 15, 18 or whatever. Just put them on at a tenner, which is a bargain. They'll fly out.
Yeah.
You'll still get some serious cash back on them, and you only paid £2.50 for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it.
No, but I suppose you can use it as an example of it's not even when you're being told exactly what to do by someone like Nick who knows what he's talking about.
The thing is, like I said, it took me a long time to really grasp that. When we had our gaming shop, I would hold on to like what I paid from the supplier for a game, which has dropped out of the charts. It got badly reviewed. Nobody wants it. I'm holding on for $29.99 for some crappy Xbox game that never even made the top 10.
Because you know what you paid for it.
Yeah. And on Amazon, it's already discounted to $9.99. It's like, Nick, get a grip, lose the money, and move on.
But how did that happen, though? What was the process of you saying get a grip? Like, what did you have to have a sit down and chat with Andrea about it? And
that you're being an idiot, and you've got stuff for sale at a price you're never going to achieve. And what you actually need is to get the money back and to invest in something you can make money on. It's all about cash flow. And it took me too long, really, when I was in retail to work out that cash flow was king. It was all about that.
See, guys,
it's kind of different in what I do now, because I'm not talking about the volumes of cash that I used to deal in. But yeah.
Yes. Oh wow. Oh, it's something I've got to work on, definitely. Going to the chat. God, it's popping off. Andy Robinson says, just worship at the church of Nick Hills and work hard. You won't go far wrong. It works for Zahir and many others. But if you do go wrong, remember you can always blame Nick.
Excuse me.
Oh, that's right.
The quote Life of Brian, I'm not the Messiah. I'm just a very naughty boy.
Indie Chick says, we all remember the lampsy. Oh, the lamp's in the good place.
There's a question for me from ETYK85. Back in the day, you had a job lot of transparent slides with family on it. Have you sold it? If you, I haven't done anything with it. It's on this back shelf at the top here somewhere. So yeah, I need to do that. Actually, it said slides. It wasn't slides. It was Cinefilm. That's what I'm thinking about anyway. I don't remember having slides.
Oh.
Ray Cunningham says £430 sat there, even at $4.99 each.
Yeah.
See all this money you're sitting on. You could just liquidate that, reinvest it in something that's worth even more.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm gonna have to, aren't I?
And also, sometimes selling as a bundle, it's like, imagine all of the work you're saving yourself, packaging up and shipping out individually.
Yeah. Thing is, I know we've made plenty of money on this deal already, and there's stuff that we're happy to sit on because it doesn't take up much space, i.e. the RC spares. They take up no space comparatively. I mean, these things are taking up 2 huge boxes, or 3 huge boxes actually.
Well, talking about I'll briefly say I don't know what's going to happen. I don't even know if I'm going to go and do it, but I think I shared with you the other night, I've found potentially a huge amount of investment I'm going to make in some stock. I'm going to view it on Friday, and then it's going to be sold off at auction. So for all I know, it's going to go way beyond what I think it's worth, but this could be my biggest investment ever.
Because you need more stock.
Well, yeah.
Well, you've said you're actually running low on stuff to list.
Yeah, I am. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I've just invested £1,000 in all of this cosmetics and stuff. And now I'm thinking, I haven't got a clue how much it's going to cost me.
Wow. I see you're finally working on the wrestling figures as well.
Yeah, these guys. I wanted to ask you, while I think of it, there's one I could not identify, and I'm thinking you'll know. He's got like an R.
Oh, I know him. Oh God.
It looks like a snake kind of.
No, is it RVD? Rob Van Dam, maybe? I could be wrong, but people will know in the chat, I'm sure.
I thought I had a Rob Van Dam and he had long hair.
Yeah, I know, but he might have shaved it off. No, it's Ryback. Duh, ask me.
Ryback.
Yes, Ryback. Peter Ray was in there with Ryback. Sorry, Peter, and all the other wrestling fans out there for getting that so wrong. I knew it was something.
I went through this box last night, and I had to go back to that video where I shared them all about, it's like a year and a half ago, and to get all the names. And then I've got a load more since that are these ones. Look at these guys. That you squeeze them, and they do all the business.
Oh wow!
I've got a bundle of them I'm going to do as well.
Ray says you could sell them and save it towards the Razer laptop that you plug your phone into. Oh, I suppose.
I think sometimes, and it just comes down to having to make the decision and go with it. And I struggle with that. It's interesting when you said you made the decision, you cancelled the listings, you set up an auction, and then went back on it.
Yeah,
that's interesting because
I had it listed. I went, Beck, I've listed it, and she's like, "Oh, okay." And then 5 minutes later, I went out and was like, "Yeah, I just cancelled the list."
But
So
sometimes my
stupid.
brain just seizes up trying to make the decision how I'm going to sell something. I was researching a load of what are they called? White Dwarf magazines last night, and my brain just seized to a halt. Couldn't decide whether I was going to do them all individually, do a few little bundles, or one big job lot. I could not make the decision. Like, just do it, Nick. Just do one of the other. It doesn't matter.
Ryan says, sit on the planes for a year, then worry, Z. Well, it's already coming up to 5 months, isn't it? 5 or 6 months. Yeah.
Gary says, Z, my original offer from a few months ago still stands at 50 quid.
Thank you.
60, how's that?
Nice. I've actually had a better local offer, but we'll see.
See, you could bundle them all up and get a big.
I could just take them to auction or something. I don't know. I'll see. I'll see what we'll do. I'll see more. Yeah, but I do need to think about it. It's it's something that still frazzles me just thinking about it, because I think it's a topic of its own, really, is like knowing when to do what with the haul, and or just like you said, it's something you have to just learn. Like after you've made a certain amount of money, you need to know when you can just kind of.
Yeah, and it really did take me a long time to get around that, and also learning to let go of what you paid for something. It becomes irrelevant.
Yeah.
The moment you spent the money, it's irrelevant. Let go, because it doesn't matter what you paid for it. Your job is then to get the most out of it.
Yeah, to look at the individual pricing it's like pointless, because the overall is the numbers are there, and I'm gonna have a lot of thinking to do. I'm gonna have a lot of thinking to do. But yeah, that's just another thing of something that you're gonna have to grasp, definitely, if you're gonna become self-employed and get into deals, is knowing when you're onto a winner, when you're onto a loser, and what to do about it. And as I'm proving, it's not that easy.
It's not. And don't beat yourself up. I struggle with it. I think everybody does. It's interesting. Graham says, actually, he says, funny, this subject came up today. I dumped, he says, e.g. massive discounts, a load of stock which was on eBay almost a year in order to buy new stock with greater potential. Waiting is a waste of my time. Yeah, and I'm becoming more and more that way. I mean, I've discounted virtually everything I've got for sale to move it on. Andrea's going through and being ruthless with her clothing, and it's.
I mean, it actually reminds me, like, you're going to have Steve and Steph on Thursday, aren't you? And it actually reminds me, like, I've been watching their yard sale live streams, where the whole idea, like the way they work with their pallets, is so brilliant. Like they sell off the quality stuff first, and they do that by the apps, but then by the time they get to like the not so great stuff, that's when they start doing these flea markets and swap meets and then yard sales, and they do blow stuff out in the end, don't they? I mean, they've got a couple of buyers. There's a lady that buys tons off of them, and they're pretty much not making a huge amount on those deals at all. But at that point, they're like so much into profit. They said the exact same thing. They were like,
that's the key, isn't it? That they've made their decent profit.
Yeah,
they could just blow it all out at heavy discounts, and it's still profit. It's like, in one way, I think they did a yard sale and did like £1,100 in 3 hours or whatever. Yeah. But it doesn't matter what those individual items cost them, because they were in profit on the whole pallet deal or whatever it was.
And the whole point of that yard sale was to blow it out, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that £1,100 in reality was all profit, because they've already made their investment back. And that's how you got to look at it. But yeah, it's going to be great.
I've got to train my head to do that. I really do need to train my head around that. UK Devils has a question. Nick and Z, before you went full-time reselling, did you save up as a safety net before taking the plunge, or was that safety net pure stock to sell and just go with it?
Well, you go first.
No, I did it what you would say the complete wrong way. I had debt, no savings. It was just a case that I was in that situation working in a job I hated, or I could be in a similar situation working for myself. So I chose working for myself. So I didn't do it the way I would recommend to others. it's a case of don't do as I do. You would be better off saving, definitely, just from a stress aspect. Nick has mentioned my grey hair count has shot up since I've known him, and there's a good reason for that.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, self-employment will do that to you. We did have some money behind us just before we went full time back in 2001. We both had fairly good jobs and we had some money in the bank. But what we had done is we had built it up part time to a point where we could see that we could make it work. Although it was still a big leap and quitting the jobs was a huge decision, we could see where we could take it. So we did have a little bit of money in the bank, not masses. But the key for me, and the key that it was a risk, going back to the risk thing, it was a risk still, but we had done enough and we felt prepared enough that we could take the jump.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. UK Devil says, same as you, I'm just going for it. I wish you the best, UK Devils. Trying to save though. Yeah, save as much as you can. You don't want to give yourself unnecessary stress.
Yeah.
And things never go as you plan. So
exactly. And I'm the worst for overthinking things, actually, and not starting. The whole pub idea that I'm trying to get going, I mean, that's a classic example of me overthinking something. And there has to come a point where you just go, I'm doing this, and you jump in. You can never be fully prepared. You can never wipe out all the risk. You can never think through all the parameters of what's going to happen. There has to be a point where you go, man up, grow a pair, and do it if you're going to do it. So yeah, you can also procrastinate too long and try and eradicate all the risk, and it's not going to happen.
I suppose, thinking back to this whole stock thing, the thing that always bothers me is, but then why am I selling it to someone else who's going to sit and make the £10 a unit?
Yeah, I mean, if you sold it off as a big job lot, you would be getting way less.
Way less, yeah. And then someone else is going to make their money, yeah.
Yeah. So in that case,
my stupid head's thinking, well, why am I letting them make the money? Why am I making it?
Yeah. Well, in that case, just discount them to a level where you're still making some good money, but they're going to fly out. Just do them at £10 each, then, those planes.
I don't think they're the kind of things that will fly out. Do you know what I mean? This is not every day people are looking for die-cast model planes.
It's a decision that only you can make, Z.
Oh, well, it's out then. Indie Chick says, I bought a single item of stock for £500. Big mistake. Now I'm coming to the conclusion that I'm just going to have to take a loss on it. I might get 300 if I'm lucky. Oh, that is a tough lesson to learn, Indie Chick.
That's tough. But at least, you know where you're at, you know the reality, and you do need that money back. So there's no time like the present. You just got to do it.
Yeah. Ryan says, question Z, do you think Bex has enjoyed self-employment more than you thought she would? Yes, definitely. I mean, it's something you obviously have to ask her as well, but yeah, I didn't think she'd enjoy it as much as she's taken to it a lot better than I thought she would. And actually she's really helped me, to be honest. I'm kind of much happier now. It feels like a problem shared, that whole kind of thing.
Yep. Graham says, but the reason you're getting rid of the stock, Z, is that you're not turning over it fast enough.
Yeah, it's not selling. Yeah, I know. It's so stupid.
The age-old conundrum. There's so many ways to resell. How do they say it? The fast nickel and the slow dime, or whatever. Yeah. Sold something.
Oh, cool.
Oh, let's have a quick look. I've sold a swimming costume from that sports hall for 15 quid plus shipping.
Nice.
I think fantastic on it. Not sure.
That's still a good. Talking about holding on to halls, how long did you have that sports hall for, Nick?
I bought it. I thought I bought it just before I started making videos, but I looked back and it's in one of my very first videos where I say, look what I got the other week.
Yeah.
So it's about 3.5 years I've had it.
Southwest Sellers still trying to play hardball. I've gotten him up to £52 now.
For what? What's he?
I think he's actually I think that was his bid for the whole lot, though, not just the planes. That was him bidding for my whole.
Yeah, Gary, I outbid you earlier at 60.
Yeah.
52's no good.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you everyone for joining. We've got over 80 people in the chat. If you enjoyed the chat, please give it a thumbs up. We really enjoyed reading the comments and talking about it. It's actually it's a topic that's going to have me thinking now for the rest of the evening, definitely. So thank you very much, Nick, for chewing the fat with me.
It's been a pleasure as always.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Looking forward to seeing Steve and Stefan with you on Thursday. That should be an interesting chat, definitely.
Yeah, I don't have a time as yet. I need to message them tonight and work out what works best, because as you know, there's a huge time difference and it's a bit tricky. I don't think Andrew's going to be around to join us. So, but yeah, join us on Thursday on my channel. Well, we'll be chatting with Steve and Steph about the local game again.
Yeah.
And yeah, you back on
we'll be back Friday, on Friday, yeah. And then you guys back on Sunday. So another week of reselling YouTube goodness, guys.
Yes. And by Sunday, I will be fed up with DIY.
It's good that you can do DIY, actually. I can't even, yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Okay, guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.
Take care, guys.